Hello everyone, welcome to my latest video. I am taking a break from watching the NFL season opener between the Eagles and the Falcons. Falcons are up 3-0. We're about a little over halfway through the second quarter right now, so not exactly lighting up the scoreboard, but still it's great to have football back. And I can't wait to watch more of it on Sunday, especially my Giants. We'll see what they're able to put together. So, speaking of Sundays, I want to bring this point up to those of you that watch my Saturday night's main events, Clash of Champions streams. There hasn't been a set day that I've been doing them. It's been either Saturday or Sundays for the most part. And just as long as I get it done on the weekend, then it's done. I haven't had a set time or date. With football season, I'm gonna be spending my time watching football. So Sundays are probably not gonna be available to do the streams. So count on the streams happening on Saturday. And if I'm not able to do it Saturday, then there's not going to be a stream that weekend. Just letting you guys know in advance, because I'm not sacrificing football to watch Saturday night's main event and Clash of the Champions. Ain't happening. I've been enjoying both. I love revisiting both, but football needs my attention on Sunday. That's my football day. So, I wanted to give you guys that update. My Kaiju movie reviews. The first set of reviews should be up sometime next week. That's the goal. I'm going to put up a video explaining how the reviews are going to work, and then maybe a day or two later I'll post the first set of reviews, and then you'll be getting those monthly. Also, another video that I've been planning for well over a year now, the top 20 episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. That's something I want to do, especially with all the material that's been coming out lately regarding He-Man, with all the books being released and the documentaries that have popped up on Netflix. I mean, He-Man has shown up on The Toys That Made Us. There was the Canon Films documentary, Electric Boogaloo, which I highly recommend. It's great. Where the Masters of the Universe movie came up on that. And then Netflix just released a giant He-Man documentary that's about nothing but He-Man and Masters of the Universe and that whole franchise. So He-Man's been getting a lot of attention lately, it seems, which is kind of fascinating to me. Because of all the properties from the 80s, like, He-Man seems the most stuck in the 80s, and yet somehow it's had kind of sort of a revival. I mean, She-Ra's coming back on Netflix, although I'm not supposed to be involved in that discussion because I'm not a woman. The show's not for me, so I've been told, even though I probably know more about She-Ra than most of the people that are telling me I shouldn't watch it. I grew up with She-Ra. I love She-Ra, but anyway, it doesn't really matter what I have to say. Where was I going with this? But anyway, I did want to do a video talking about my top 20 favorite episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, so I'm going to try and get that out within the next couple of months. I had originally planned, my first plan was to do a top 20 best episodes, and then I thought, my stomach got bigger than my eyes got bigger than my stomach. And I thought, you know what? I should go back and rewatch all of She-Ra. I should go back and finally sit down and watch all of New Adventures of He-Man, which was the second He-Man show that came out in the early 90s, which I never watched all of. I think in total I've watched maybe 5 or 6 episodes. And I thought, yeah, I should go back and watch all 65 episodes of that. And I should take that and combine it with the 2002 show, and then I should do a top 50 episodes of all the shows combined, from the original He-Man to She-Ra to friggin' New Adventures to the 2002 show. And then I realized, where the hell am I going to get time to watch 65 episodes of a show that I didn't watch as a kid? So, not only is that going to be time-consuming and hard to do, it's also going to be unlikely that I'll be able to get through all 65 episodes, because it's like, unlike the original series, I don't have that nostalgic feel for the 90s show, so I think I would be much less forgiving towards it. Nostalgia is a powerful drug, so I decided to go back to my original idea of doing just the top 20 favorite episodes of the original show. And if I want to revisit, that idea, that concept, I could do that at a later date. And maybe even do other 80s cartoons like Thundercats and Transformers or She-Ra. Like, She-Ra is one I would do, but DuckTales, maybe, the original DuckTales. So weird, like, so many shows from my childhood. I have to preface it by saying the original blank. The real Ghostbusters, as opposed to the 2016 Ghostbusters or the Filmation Ghostbusters, which was a pile of garbage. But anyway, yeah, so that video will be coming out in the next few months. Any other major updates? Oh yeah, my work. My job, my actual job, my real job, my 9-to-5 job is not going to be strictly a 9-to-5 for the next few weeks. For the next 6 weeks, the next 5 weeks, with an asterisk, I'm going to be doing an overtime project that's going to take up an additional 10 hours of my week. It's going to be beneficial for me in the long run because I'm basically doing work that nobody else wants to do, and the company is going to love me for it, and I've already been told I'm going to get rewarded for it. So just for taking on the project, I'm going to get rewarded for it. So that's good. But because I'll be taking on an additional 10 hours of work every week, it also means less time to make videos. That doesn't mean you're never going to see me for the next 5 weeks. Au contraire, my kaiju movie reviews are going to start up next week. But it means I'm going to have less time to dedicate to making videos. I think I have a way where I can do it without interfering too much, but if it feels like I'm not producing over a fairly long period of time, chances are the overtime is getting to me and I'm just tired. So just letting you guys know beforehand. I don't think it'll be a problem because I already have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to tackle it and how I'm going to do it. I've already started on it this week, and I think the first week is going to be the worst week, but once I start putting in a couple hours on the weekends and kind of chipping away at it, I think I can space it out in a way where it's not too time consuming. But again, fingers crossed, let's hope. Maybe I'm just being an optimist, who knows. But wanted to let you guys know, if it feels like I'm being quiet with the videos, that's why. And before I get into the main topic of today's video, let's do the top 10 matches for August 2018. Now, before I jump into my top 10 favorite matches, I do want to give some love to the matches from the G1 Climax that I really enjoyed that didn't make the top 10 list, but I did want to highlight the ones that I really enjoyed. From night 12, Naito versus Yano. Yano, by the way, Yano was like the unsung hero of the G1 Climax. I think I enjoyed almost every match that he had. Just so many funny and entertaining and good matches with him, and all of his antics mixed in with him actually trying to wrestle. I thought he was very entertaining throughout the G1 Climax, but I thought Naito and Yano was good. Omega and Zack Sabre Jr. from night 12 was awesome. Ibushi versus Goto was very good. Fale versus Elgin was a nice hard-hitting match. That was night 13. Hangman versus Makabe from night 13 I really enjoyed. Okada versus Suzuki was, as expected, very good. Yano versus Sonata was very good. Juice versus Zack Sabre Jr. was very good. Ishii versus Omega from night 14. Ibushi versus Naito from night 14. Tanahashi versus Elgin from night 15 was really good. Juice versus Ishii from night 16 was really good. Ibushi versus Tonga, which felt like kind of the payoff to the Bullet Club OGs kind of ruining all their tournament matches. That match kind of felt like the match where everything kind of came to a head, and somebody was finally able to kind of at least put them in their place a little bit. Was standing for a little bit, even though Tonga ultimately won. But it was felt like that was kind of Tonga's big victory of the tournament, and Ibushi, put up a hell of a fight up against them, and Kenny tried to help him, but then everything just kind of went south. Tonga won, and then that ultimately hurt Omega heading into his match with Yano, which Yano won. So a lot of storylines and intersecting going on night 16. I really like that. Night 17 we had Hangman versus Yoshi, which was pretty good. Suzuki versus Fale, which I really liked. Nice mix there with Suzuki going in there with the gigantic big as fuck guy. Ishii versus Sonata from night 18 was really good, and Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. from night 18 was great. So with that, let's jump to my top 10 favorite matches from August 2018. Number 10, Fenix versus Sami Callihan from Impact Wrestling, August 16th episode. Very good, nice continuation of the storyline going on between OVE and the Lucha Brothers and everything that's going on there. Sami and Pentagon obviously had an outstanding match at Slammiversary, and they had a Mexican death match as a main event of Impact. I think right after, a couple weeks after Fenix and Callihan, but I thought Fenix and Callihan had a really good match. Was actually better than the Mexican death match that was held a few weeks later. I thought it was really good. Number 9, the Mack versus Muertes in a haunted house match from Lucha Underground's August 22nd episode. Really good, fun, hardcore match. Katrina beating the hell out of Melissa before the match even started was kind of like a big holy shit moment. And, you got the Mack and Muertes, who are kind of these two big hoss guys, but very different personalities. And I thought they meshed together really well and made a really fun match out of it. Then from SummerSlam, we've got Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. My personal favorite match from this SummerSlam. I thought it was just a really entertaining match, a nice continuation of their story. I understand that they've thrown Brie and Maurice into the mix for the buildup of this feud, which I kind of gathered the way that this match played out. But overall, I thought it was a really good match that highlighted the strengths of both guys. Definitely Daniel Bryan, or at least, granted, I haven't watched much WWE, but it's the best I've seen Daniel Bryan perform since he came back, which is good to see. Next up, at number 7, we've got Pentagon Dark versus Cage for the Lucha Underground title in the last man or machine standing match in a very wild match. Same episode as the Haunted House match. I think that the 822 episode is probably the best episode of Season 4 so far, mainly because it had these two really good matches on it. And I thought these two went out there, tore it down with this wild and crazy affair that highlighted the strengths of both men and gave Pentagon a huge win over Cage. So, really good stuff there. Number 7 from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4, Adam Cole versus Ricochet for the North American Championship, with Ricochet winning the belt. Very good match. Very good. Nice to see a title change here. And again, Ricochet, a lot of the stuff he was doing in the second half of that match was just insane. So if you've never seen Ricochet before, I highly recommend watching this match because he just looked like he was... He looked unbelievable in the later stages of that match. And Adam Cole, that super kick spot out of the moonsault, where Ricochet was moonsaulting and he super kicked him low to break it up. That was a really cool spot and just really, really good stuff all around. Number 5, Tomasso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano for the NXT title from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. This was their last man standing match, another last man standing match on the list. I think it's the weakest match that the three have had so far, but even at their worst, these three put on something really, really good. Very good match. Really enjoyed it. Great stuff. Except for the finish I was a little wonky on, and there maybe got a little too repetitive at various parts, but overall I thought the match was very good. Number 4 from the G1 Climax, Night 18, the B Block Finals, Kenny Omega versus Kota Ibushi, the Battle of the Golden Lovers, the two best friends, and Ibushi gets the shock win over Omega. Excellent match, very good work between everybody involved. And, man, it kind of made me disappointed that Ibushi didn't win the tournament because I was like, man, I'd like to see that match again at Wrestle Kingdom with all the storyline implications heading into it. So, but overall, I thought it was a very, very good match between these two and hopefully just a preview of what we're in store for at a later date. Then number 3, I've got the Undisputed Era versus Moustache Mountain for the NXT tag titles from Brooklyn 4. I think the matches that they'd had previous to this were better, but this was still very good. Excellent opener, excellent tag match, great work by all 4 men, as usual. What else is there to say? It was a great match. Number 2, Kazuchika Okada versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, the A Block Finals from the G1 Climax. These guys have just a magical chemistry. I've seen these guys work with each other so many times, and it's always been outstanding. They've never had a dull one, and they always find like a different way to tell the story each time. So I don't feel like I'm seeing the exact same match every single time. And we got the time limit draw here, showing that these two... they actually had a draw at another G1 Climax, I think, if not last year, it was the year before. I don't remember which. But these two guys, they always tear it down whenever they're put together, and this was no exception. And number 1, my favorite match of the month, Kota Ibushi versus Hiroshi Tanahashi in the G1 Climax Finals. Excellent match, perfect match to have as the finals. I was rooting for Ibushi all the way. I really wanted him to win. Didn't happen. Tanahashi got the win, but still, it was an excellent match, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I was kind of heartbroken when Ibushi didn't win, but now we've got Tanahashi on the path back to the Tokyo Dome main event. And what looks to be possibly his final Tokyo Dome main event. We'll have to see if that's how it plays out. But, man, great matches this month. Great stuff. The G1 Climax delivered once again. So, brand of the month is going to go to New Japan on the strength of the G1 Climax and just how excellent it was. And just, once again, probably the best wrestling tournament out there these days. So, great stuff. Really enjoyed it. So, now let's get into the actual topic that I wanted to talk about in this video. And it's actually going to be about WWE. WWE and their current product and some of the things they've been doing coming out of SummerSlam and starting with what happened at SummerSlam. And basically, without sounding as much like a sarcastic prick or a overly judgmental prick as possible, I have to ask this question: is the WWE completely tone deaf when it comes to their fans and giving their fans what they want and telling the stories in a way that matches the crowd reaction? Because you look at what they're doing specifically in two storylines. Roman Reigns and his push and I guess feud with Braun Strowman, that's going to be happening now that Braun Strowman is kind of joined up with Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler to take on the Shield, and they're being presented as the heels in this situation. And the other storylines going on SmackDown with the women and Becky Lynch's recent heel turn and turn against Charlotte Flair, who's being presented as the face. I say presented as the face because based on the crowd reactions, that's not how you would imagine who the faces and who the heels are. And it's just amazing to me that you look at the way the crowd is reacting to the characters in these stories, and the WWE is not willing to pivot or to go along with the way the crowd is reacting. Now, Roman Reigns, we have beat that horse to death. I actually am very uninterested in talking about it because it's just going to be me repeating myself. Thank God the Charlotte and Becky thing, which is actually more of the inspiration for this video than anything else. Thank God that happened because it gave me something a little bit more interesting to talk about than just pounding the Roman horse to death. But you know, you look at the Roman Reigns situation, you know, they reformed the Shield, which some people complained about that and they said it's like, oh, they're just doing that to get Roman Reigns over and to get him cheered. And I was like, true, but it kind of makes sense because all three of them are going to be on the same show, and if Dean Ambrose came back and is joined up with Seth Rollins, it makes sense that the Shield would join back together. So at least it's like they're keeping continuity with their storyline because they were together before Ambrose got hurt. So to me, it makes sense that they would be together. So I'm not overly upset about that. But if I were writing it, the Shield would be the heel faction that tears through everybody and protects Roman at all costs. And then it's up to the baby faces like the Braun Strowmans of the world to break through, deal with the Shield, and take the title off of Roman. That should be the story, at least in my mind. Because I'm not upset that they took the title off of Lesnar, because thank God. I just hope we never get Roman versus Lesnar ever again. We're done. It's over. Story's done. Let's just move on. But you know, the fans for the longest time have been voicing their displeasure towards Roman Reigns. It's obvious. It's been there for a while. And I don't, and I've said this before with Roman, I don't think Roman's a bad worker. That's not the problem. The problem is the fans don't like to be told who to like. And they've already made up their minds with Roman, whether rightly or wrongly. They've made up their minds. And the WWE not kind of evolving with the crowd reaction just seems ridiculous, especially when you look at their history. I was just watching a shoot interview with the Honky Tonk Man, and a lot of people don't remember this, but the Honky Tonk Man was brought in as a babyface, which sounds ridiculous that anybody could ever imagine that gimmick could work as a babyface. But they brought him in as a babyface, and they hated him. And this was back in an era where fans loved all the faces, especially in WWF. Like, if you were a babyface, you were going to get cheered. The Red Rooster got cheers, so for them to just completely shit on Honky Tonk Man, that says a lot about what the fans thought of this character. Turned him heel, and he became a fucking heat magnet, and he became the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time because people wanted to see him get his ass kicked. And he had all the heat in the world, and it was great. Not the best worker in the world, but it didn't matter. He had so much heat that you just wanted to see him get his ass kicked. And they got a lot out of that. They got a lot of mileage out of that. It was a big... they got the creation of the Mega Powers out of it, because Honky was the heel in that situation. The start of the greatest, in my opinion, one of, if not the greatest storyline that the WWE, WWF ever had, the rise and fall of the Mega Powers, began because Honky Tonk Man had a shit ton of heat. And that was because they realized he wasn't working as a face, so they had to turn him heel. Things just get better when you go along with how the crowd is naturally reacting to things. I remember in WCW when the crowd started to turn on Goldberg. And part of that was because he won all the time, but another part of that was because they started piping in Goldberg chants, and fans don't like to be told who to cheer for. And I think that's the same case with Roman Reigns. They sense the bullshit there. They sense that Vince wants us to think of him as the be-all, end-all, the creme de la creme, the King of Kings, God Almighty. They want us to think of him as that Hulk Hogan, John Cena, babyface type of guy. And they don't. They don't think of him that way. And they don't like to be told that they're supposed to think of him that way. So they're not. And they're just shitting on him, or at worst, walking out on him in the middle of a main event, which actually happened at Backlash earlier this year. That main event was a disaster. Now, if you turn Roman heel and reign with him as top heel champion and did the storyline that I'm suggesting, where the Shield is this unbeatable force that you can't get through. To get to Roman, you got to get through the Shield, and all these faces are going to fall in his wake until, say, WrestleMania, where you put someone else in that spot that ultimately takes him down, whether it be Braun Strowman or Daniel Bryan or AJ Styles or whoever. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. It's up to you. You tell the story. Don't depend on me to come up with your own bullshit. But I think that would work much better, and I think it would just be a more natural thing to work them as heels, especially with Roman in that top spot that nobody wants him in. Although I heard reports that Seth Rollins got injured on Raw this week. Is that true? Because if so, then that kind of fucks my whole idea. But, to me... you gotta have an ear for the fans and get a gist of how they're reacting to people. And if they're not reacting the way you want them to, then you give them the story that they are reacting to. It's like, all right, maybe they'll react to this. And the constant rebuttal to turning Roman heel, it's like, well, if they turn him heel, then they'll just start cheering him. It's like, well, great, you get the reaction you wanted in the first place. You can go along with whatever your plan was initially. So you win either way by turning him heel. You either get a super hot heel or you get the reaction you wanted in the first place. Worked for a little guy called Rocky Maivia, lest we forget. Worked for the New Day, lest we forget. But... but the Roman Reigns situation, like I said, it's been pounded to death. I've talked about it ad nauseum. Everyone else has talked about it ad nauseum. Let's talk about Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair and what they're doing there, shall we? Let's look at the situation at SummerSlam. You have Becky Lynch, who's really well liked by the fan base. And she was put in this situation where she was going to get the title shot at SummerSlam. And it's like, oh my God, the plucky underdog's going to get the title shot. And maybe she can win the title here. And then Charlotte Flair gets inserted into the match because the WWE says so, to make it a triple threat, and then Charlotte wins. In the fans' minds, the WWE's favored one, who is Ric Flair's daughter, who's being pushed because of the dynasty aspect of it, at least that's the fans' perception of it, they didn't like Charlotte being in the match, and they don't like that Charlotte won because they were into Becky Lynch and they wanted Becky to win. And then when Becky beat the crap out of her, it's like, yeah, good. Because in the fans' mind and in the character of Becky Lynch's mind, this was supposed to be her one-on-one shot, and she didn't get it. And Charlotte ended up stealing that moment from her, so she flipped out and turned heel and gave the fans what they wanted. Basically acted out how the fans were actually feeling at that moment. And now they've tried to run with Becky Lynch as a heel, and the fans are fucking cheering her. I saw a promo that they did. I think it was the first SmackDown after SummerSlam, and she's cutting a promo talking about what she did and why she did it. It's like, and then she started saying things like, but did you fans really support me from the beginning? And then they all started chanting, yes, yes we did. You trying to say otherwise is just you being delusional. And it's the WWE. They can't read the room, or they don't want to read the room. They just want to do whatever they want to do. And it's so amazing to me that you look at things like a lot of the things that I pointed out in the Rock and Wrestling era, and a lot of things that they did in the Attitude Era, where they were clearly listening to the fans and judging and guiding the shows based on their reactions. Steve Austin would have never been top babyface in any other era in pro wrestling, but in the Attitude Era he was, and that was because they listened to the fans. There's that famous story with the Jake Roberts Hulk Hogan program being dropped because the fans started cheering Jake when they filmed the segment where Jake DDT'd him. And Jake has expressed regret about that. It's like, yep, the fans cost me a lot of money because I didn't get to work with Hogan. But I would argue that it hurt Jake in the short term because he got screwed out of that huge money-making program with Hogan, but it helped him in the long term because they went along, they recognized that the fans were cheering for Jake. And it wasn't just the Hogan segment, because again, go back and watch that Saturday Night's Main Event episode where he opened up the show with Randy Savage, and they did a heel versus heel match. Fans were cheering for Jake. I mean, Jake was the de facto babyface in that match. So Jake was one of those guys that they wanted to root for. They just needed a reason to root for him, and they ultimately decided to just turn him face and just go with it. And the end result was one of the top baby faces of the era. And I think he had a prolonged run because of that, because he was able to have his own stories and have his own individual programs. Whereas if he had been another heel that worked with Hogan, he would have had the hot program with Hogan, and then he would have been fed to Hogan, chewed up, spat out, and then he would have gone the way of the dodo. Paul Orndorff, for example. King Kong Bundy, for example. Just to throw some names out there. I think it actually prolonged Jake Roberts' career, turning him face and not doing the program with Hogan. But again, that's just my opinion. But again, they did that because they listened to the fans, and they realized the fans wanted to cheer for Jake. And here you have the situation where it's like the fans clearly want to cheer for Becky. They clearly like Becky. And yet they want to go with Charlotte Flair as the face. And I'm like, dude, you're just creating Roman Reigns with tits. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're just going to turn Charlotte into another Cena and another Roman. And I mean that in a bad way, because the fans are just going to shit on her. And that's bad for Charlotte, and it's bad for everyone that has to work with her, because they're not going to get the reaction that they want, which is to get booed out of the building. Now, if they work the story in a way where Charlotte is this arrogant heel that stole the title from Becky Lynch, who's their underdog, beloved one, and then let Becky play the chaser to Charlotte's unbeatable champion, there you go. The story, I think, works more naturally that way. And pushing it as is, it's just the fans are just going to cheer Becky because they just feel the same way she does. And again, WWE's either inability to read the room or stubbornness to read the room, absolute refusal to read the room, is just mind-numbingly irritating to me. And it makes the show tougher to watch. Since SummerSlam, I've not watched a full episode of Raw or SmackDown. I've watched bits and pieces here and there, but haven't watched a full episode. It's just, what the hell are y'all doing? It's like, what the hell? You gotta read the room, guys. And to see it happening both on Raw at the main event level, and to see it happening on SmackDown with the women's division, which is getting a heavy push with the Evolution pay-per-view, and rumors that Ronda Rousey and Charlotte are going to main event WrestleMania. But that's the other reason. That's all the more reason to turn Charlotte heel, because who's going to be the babyface in that situation? Who's going to be the heel in that situation? Because you want a heel. And if Charlotte's flopping as a face already, I guess that means Ronda's going to have to be the heel by default, and I don't know how that's going to play. Is that going to play well? I don't know. If that's your plan, to do Charlotte and Ronda in the main event at WrestleMania, you're kind of fucking it over already by pushing Charlotte as a face when no one wants her as a face. I really feel like you'd have a better chance if you turn Charlotte heel. That's just my opinion. But we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know. WrestleMania is still a long ways away. So there's rumors that we're going to get Roman Reigns and The Rock, because fuck you, that's why. If they do, I swear to God, if they do that match, anyway. Yeah, so I think that's all I've got for this video. I think I'm done here. I've expressed all my displeasure with the current WWE creative direction, but you got Braun Strowman, who was getting over as a face, and Roman, who's not, and they decided to run with Strowman as the heel and Roman as the face. Why not? It makes sense to somebody. I'm sure it makes sense to somebody, but the Becky Lynch-Charlotte situation, I'm sure it makes sense to somebody, but my advice would be to pivot and to guide the stories based on the regular crowd reactions. But again, what do I know? I'm just a fan. But anyway, that's all I've got for this video. Thank you all for watching. My next Clash and Saturday Night's Main Event stream will be happening on Saturday. I've got some errands to run and stuff to do Saturday morning, so look for it to happen sometime Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. We'll see how it goes. Not happening Sunday. It's definitely not happening Sunday, because I'm going to be watching my football and doing all my other shit. But that is all I have for you now. So again, thanks you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you all later.